Washington in turmoil. Trump's presidency descends into chaos. Washington is currently engulfed in a political storm of unprecedented intensity. Donald Trump, entering what may well be the most chaotic phase of his presidency, finds himself at the center of a perfect storm of domestic unrest, international criticism, and growing institutional instability. Diplomats, foreign allies, and global observers are closely monitoring what they describe as a rapid escalation of disorder, characterized by paranoia, contradictions, and geopolitical decisions that threaten to unsettle the established world order. The crisis appears to have begun one frenzied night at the White House. According to multiple eyewitnesses and political analysts, Trump exhibited signs of extreme exhaustion, heightened anxiety, and an almost frantic energy. Throughout the night, he reportedly issued a series of incoherent messages on social media, interspersed with personal attacks and contradictory claims, creating confusion both within the administration and among international observers. By dawn, the repercussions were already apparent. Traditional U.S. allies were beginning to distance themselves, while several international institutions openly disregarded Washington's official positions. For a president whose term was already under strain from successive crises, this was a moment of acute vulnerability. The question now on everyone's mind: has the administration reached a point of irreparable rupture? The unfolding chaos was amplified by revelations regarding Trump's handling of Ukraine. Reports indicate that the administration adopted a proposal directly originating from Moscow. The plan demanded that Ukraine cede vast territories, reduce its military forces, abandon aspirations to join NATO, and accept several key Russian demands. Shockingly, the document was reportedly run through an automatic translation tool before being presented to Kyiv as an American initiative. For U.S. diplomats and international partners, this incident represented one of the most humiliating episodes in American foreign policy in decades. Faced with mounting criticism, Trump insisted that the plan was legitimate. Secretary of State Marco Rubio attempted to reassure Congress that the situation was simply a misunderstanding. Hours later, Trump publicly contradicted Rubio, affirming that the plan was indeed an official U.S. initiative. The damage was immediate. European officials in Geneva condemned what they termed the Russification of American diplomacy, while Ukrainian representatives reiterated that they would never accept conditions dictated by the Kremlin. Meanwhile, the humanitarian and security situation in Gaza deteriorated rapidly. A ceasefire touted by Trump as a diplomatic success never actually materialized. Israeli military operations continued unabated, and Hamas declared a complete end to any truce. Civilians bore the brunt of the escalation, with more than 20 Palestinians, including children, killed in a single day. Analysts argue that this episode definitively undermines Trump's claims of achieving peace in the Middle East. International embarrassment continued at the G20 summit in Johannesburg. For the first time in the history of the summit, all member states except the United States issued a joint declaration at the opening of the conference rather than at its conclusion. The declaration called for multilateral cooperation, global stability, and international engagement, effectively a rebuke to Washington's unilateral approach. The message was unmistakable. The world is moving forward without the United States when the White House chooses isolation and unpredictability. Domestically, the Trump administration appears increasingly detached from economic realities. The president has made repeated claims that the U.S. is collecting trillions in tariffs, that inflation is declining despite persistent price increases, and that the economy is booming even as employment losses mount, industrial production contracts, and multiple states enter recession. Even holiday celebrations are politicized. Trump claimed that Thanksgiving meals are cheaper this year, while grocery prices continue to rise across the country. The economic distress is felt by millions of Americans. Between 20 and 30 million citizens risk losing health insurance coverage due to controversial policy decisions. Families struggle to afford housing, food, and health care, highlighting a growing divide between political rhetoric and lived experience. Trump's attention, however, seems largely focused on personal interests and political theatrics. Public appearances show him prioritizing leisure activities, such as golf, over pressing national concerns. He has also engaged in highly controversial international communications, including contact with former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who had recently been placed under house arrest following a conviction for insurrection, a move that raised serious questions among analysts regarding the administration's foreign policy judgment. On the military and technological front, the administration granted Saudi Arabia unprecedented access to advanced weaponry, including F-35 fighter jets and cutting-edge artificial intelligence chips, equipment normally considered highly sensitive. Concurrently, the Trump family business pursued multi-billion-dollar real estate projects funded by Saudi investors, fueling suspicions of conflicts of interest and blurring the line between private enterprise and state policy. The internal dynamics of the Republican Party are also in turmoil. Trump has begun openly attacking prominent conservative figures, including longtime allies, creating fractures within the party. Disputes with legislators over policy decisions, including critiques of rising living costs and calls for transparency regarding controversial figures, have exacerbated divisions. Across the country, voters are increasingly turning away from the far right, with Democrats securing victories in school board elections in states ranging from Texas to Pennsylvania and Ohio, signaling a public preference for stability and quality education over radical rhetoric. Even the private lives of political figures are under intense scrutiny. Media coverage of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and a journalist, as well as the public attention on Senator J. Vance's spouse for not wearing her wedding ring, reflect the extreme pressure on political families and the relentless scrutiny of public life. Internationally, concern has reached unprecedented levels. Diplomats describe a climate of uncertainty. Military officials express alarm at contradictory signals emanating from Washington, and economists warn of increasing market volatility driven by unpredictable U.S. policies. As Trump attacks allies, flatters adversaries, and issues erratic statements, one reality becomes clear. The world is witnessing a presidency unravel in real time. Once feared for his unpredictability, Trump now appears isolated, discredited, and increasingly ignored on the international stage. Global alliances are reconfiguring without him, and the narrative he hoped to shape is giving way to a chronicle of instability and disillusionment. The pressing questions are no longer whether his presidency is collapsing, but how far the descent will go and how long it will take the United States to rebuild its credibility and regain the trust of the international community. The Trump presidency, which began in chaos, now risks ending in historic disorder, an era defined not by political mastery, but by isolation, contradiction, and the relentless consequences of mismanagement.